Guys, come fast. I'm waiting for you. Literary criticism, part 2. Today, hi, Aniruddha Kumar. Today we are going to talk about very important topics. They are Dryden, Johnson. Oh, that's my favorite actually. You know what? There was so much power problem here, and I thought, what? How will I do live today? Will they be able to see me today? But then, right on time, the power came and everything is solved. We are lucky. And I'm excited to talk to you about Dryden. Namaste. Good evening. Hello. How are you all? Any books to follow my teaching? My own for British literature, my encyclopedia. Hi, Pooja. Will you please WhatsApp me everything? I will think about it and let you know everything. Just WhatsApp me, okay? My aim is only to help you understand everything properly. Right. Ready now? Hi. Hello, Halesh. Are you my student, Halesh? Halesh KM, I had a student from Karnataka. I'm fine. Actually, I was not well, but the thought of teaching solves all my problems. Today, I'm happy. Somebody was texting me in YouTube Live, you should smile, ma'am. I'm smiling because I'm happy. Right. So, shall I start with Dryden? I will. Navjot Singh, will you please WhatsApp me once again? It is because so many 100 messages are there after the class. Sometimes I miss out one or two. Please message me again. Hello, Akhila. Idiki. Hi. What a lovely place. Routledge History of English Literature may not be enough. You should read as much as you can. My WhatsApp number abhi de diya na. 903735 7688. Okay. Whatever you want, you message me. I'm not going to loot you or anything. And if you want my help, I will help you. That's all. Okay. I'm fine. See, I'm smiling again, Preet. Everything is okay. Light has come and I'm feeling refreshed. Okay, being human, you are going to watch me for more days, I hope. So without wasting time, shall I begin? Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start talking about Dryden. Dryden is the father of criticism. Who said that? It was Dr. Johnson. And I don't want to bore you today. Today, what I will do is, when I teach, in between, I will ask questions. Then you should type the answers, okay? Right. Please type in the answers whenever I ask questions. Okay. So, who called Dryden the father of criticism? Whenever I ask a question, immediately you should. Are Kirti, my encyclopedia, there is no other book better than the encyclopedia to study British history. I'm telling you this. And I'm going to give you a huge discount if you contact me. Johnson said that Dryden is the father of criticism because Dryden gave a formula for us to criticize. You know, what did Johnson say? Dr. Johnson said, Dryden gave us the principles upon which to judge a merit of composition. Dryden taught us to determine upon principles the merit of composition. I'm quoting from Dr. Johnson. And you know that Dryden lived in the Restoration period, but he was a very major neoclassical critic. In the neoclassical period, there was a revival of classical scholarship, right? From the Greco-Roman period, there was a revival of classical scholarship, but there was also a respect for what is English. They also respected Englishness, native styles they respected, which is why Dryden gave a lot of importance to native writers like Chaucer or Shakespeare, even though they are not very classical. Shakespeare, I told you already, he wrote romantic poetry, romantic tragedy, romantic comedy, rejecting classical principles. But even then, Dryden supported Chaucer and Shakespeare because neoclassicism means a support of what is native. Along with classical values, Greco-Roman values, Dryden also supports what is native. Along with the diachronic, he also gives importance to the synchronic. Did you understand? That is neoclassicism. Okay, Inspire is asking all of you to like the video. Will you please like the video? Now, very important in neoclassical literature and criticism is the principle of imitation. You have to imitate the classics. You have to write like the classical masters. Do not try your originality. Write like the classical masters. That is imitation. And also follow human nature. Human nature as it is depicted in classical literary works. Human nature as it is depicted in classical literary works. These are human nature, imitation, then wit. These are very important principles of dash. Answer me. Imitation, human nature, wit or intelligence. These are very important principles of dash. Answer me. Actually, Vijay, I was not happy. I was very ill and I was feeling very down when I taught the previous class. I had to take rest. But then I took some medicine and took some food, and now suddenly I'm able to get some energy. God is with me. My poor everyday at 7 students did not get the best of me today. But no problem. Tomorrow I will give them my best. Yeah. Yes, imitation, nature, and wit are all very important principles of neoclassical literature. I already told you that in neoclassicism, deism is very important. Deism means knowing God through his creations using reason. Knowing God through his creations using reason. That is called deism. God is not going to come in front of you. You have to know God using your reason. So in order to know God using reason, you have to know God's creations. You have to know nature. You have to know science. You have to read novels. You know, all these are principles of neoclassicism. Neoclassicism upheld reason and deism. They regarded God as a clockmaker. He has made the universe like the clock, and he has left the universe to work for itself. God is the clockmaker. That's a very important principle in neoclassicism. You know that neoclassicism flourished in the works of Dryden, and after that in the age of Pope and Johnson. The age of Pope and Johnson is called the Augustan age. The age of Pope and Johnson is called the Augustan age because the neoclassical period is as brilliant as the age of Augustus Caesar in Rome. Remember, Augustus Caesar was the first emperor of Rome. The first emperor of Rome. And Augustan age means as glorious as the age of Augustus Caesar. That is the important thing. The neoclassicism was a rebellion, was a rejection or a revolt against the excesses of the Elizabethans and the metaphysical poets. Against the excesses of the Elizabethans and the metaphysical poets, neoclassicism advocated control, moderation. These are very important principles of neoclassicism. Neoclassicism from the time of Dryden is influenced by French culture and literature and thought. From the time of Dryden, that is from the Restoration period, neoclassicism influenced by French culture. Manjot is asking me, what is the difference between wit and repartee? Repartee means tit for tat reply. You say something, I immediately reply to it. That is repartee. Wit is more intellectual. Wit is higher. Wit is replying with reason, with cause and effect, with deism means there are two kinds of religion. theism and deism. Theism. Theism means God is here with us. God is here with us. There is the famous religious story that one man was walking through the desert like this, and he said, God, please carry me. Please be with me. Please be with me, he said first. Please be with me. I'm so tired and hungry, and I'm lonely. Please be with me. And suddenly he looked in the sand in the desert, and he saw two sets of footprints beside him. And he understood, oh my God, you are with me. You are traveling with me. This is theism. God is with us. He's taking care of us. After some time, he was so tired, and he looked beside him, and the footprints of God is not there beside him. Footprints of God not there. He said to God, God, you have left me when I'm so tired. You can't do this. And God said, Arey, bacha, I'm carrying you. The footprints that you see are mine. Your footprints are not there because I'm carrying you. That is theism, a story illustrating theism. Theism means, God is here with us. Opposite of that is deism. Deism means God is not here with us. You cannot know God through actual experience. You can know God only through reason, through your own reason. God is not here. That is the meaning of deism. Did you understand? You have to apply reason, know God using your knowledge of God's creations. Percentage and percentile is not part of neoclassicism. You should Google search, but percentage is, you know what percentage is. Percentile means the first 15% only. That is percentile. Did you understand? Hello, Deboti. Love from Kerala. Okay, now in the neoclassical period, there is the rise of scientific spirit and new philosophy. The rise of scientific spirit and new philosophy is there in scientific spirit means in the 17th century, there was scientific revolution. New philosophy means empiricism. Thomas Hobbes is there, John Locke is there, rationalism, empiricism, these began to be celebrated. Shivanand, you have to start from the beginning. You have to watch from the beginning. I already explained why this age is called Augustan age. Okay, I can't disrupt the flow of my speaking. I cannot explain everything that you ask because you can watch again from the beginning. The neoclassical period showed the spirit of science, the spirit of rationalism. Prose at this time is very plain and clear. Modern prose began at this time. And neoclassicists believed that, from Dryden, people believed that we should follow nature. We should follow nature. Nature means human nature, as described or explained in classical works. What do you mean by follow nature? Follow nature means you have to be true to reality. You have to be true to universal human nature. You should not talk about individual problems and experiences. You should talk about the universal human experience. That is called human nature. You should be true to type. You should be true to gender. You should express how the divine power is expressed in human beings. All these are part of the term follow nature. When neoclassicism said follow nature, what did Rousseau, the first romantic, say? Tell me, answer me. When empiricism means experience is important. Either you watch from the beginning or you join my class, because if you ask in between what I already experienced before, it is very difficult. Empiricism means experience is the source of knowledge. Did you understand? Experience is the source of knowledge. Gurupreet's daughter, love you. Yeah, tell me, what did I ask you? I asked you a question. Arey, whatever you want other than what I'm saying, please WhatsApp me. What is the return to nature? That is what I asked. While the Augustans believed follow nature, that means follow human nature. What did Rousseau say? Rousseau said return to nature. That return to nature means return to external nature, plants, mountains, rivers, that nature. Did you understand? Nature in neoclassicism means human nature. External nature means plants, mountains, etc. And neoclassical criticism emphasized correctness. You have to follow rules and write in a correct manner, because they wanted their writing to be correct. What did they do? They again and again rewrote their works. Did you understand? They, for example, Dunciad, there is an old Dunciad and new Dunciad. Most neoclassicists went on rewriting their works. Did you understand? And they wanted to control fancy and emotion. And they believed that poetry must deal with universal truths and general ideas. What is important in poetry is not originality, but universal truths that are common to everybody and general ideas. Did you understand? The function of poetry, according to neoclassicism, is instruction. You have to teach people to be better human beings. That is what neoclassicism believed is the function of poetry. They gave a lot of importance to form and style. Neoclassicism gave importance to form and style rather than content. And neoclassicism gave importance to decorum. What do you mean by decorum? Decorum. Decorum means appropriateness. Did you understand? For example, when you go to gym, you should not wear clothes like this. When you go for a party, you should wear appropriate clothes. When you are old, you should eat appropriate food. When you are young, you should eat appropriate food. Like that, in poetry also, you should not eat, you should use appropriate diction. In novels, you should use appropriate characters. Do you understand? Old people should not be depicted as young people. Men should not be depicted like women. These are aspects called decorum. Decorum was a term originally used by Horace, but that idea is there in Aristotle himself. Did you understand, everybody? So decorum is important in neoclassicism. Did you understand? Tom Jones very playfully rejects decorum when the protagonist is represented as a foundling. Listen, everybody. Tom Jones rejected decorum of the 18th century when the Fielding depicted the protagonist as a foundling. The protagonist of Tom Jones is not a hero. He's not a great man. He is just a foundling. That is a rejection of decorum. Many writers rejected decorum like this. Did you understand? And now let me talk about John Dryden. John Dryden was a very important writer. Do you know when he was born? 1631 he was born, and he lived up to 1700. Dryden died in 1700. Just before he died, he had published Fables, Ancient and Modern, which had a preface to the Fables. Did you understand? Fables, Ancient and Modern, which had a preface to the Fables. Dryden lived from 1631 to 1700. Repeatedly think of years like this and then you will remember. Okay? You should not be studying just for an exam. You should be studying because you want to be a scholar. You want to have an awesome career, because English literature is what you have studied throughout your youth. Isn't it? Your prime time, your best years you have devoted for English literature. So it is your duty to know this. If you know English literature thoroughly, then you can teach like me. You can teach better than me, isn't it? And then you'll be awesome in your career. You'll be great professors. Did you understand? I want to tell you everything I have taught you. I have learned in the past 20-25 years in all my courses, in everywhere I teach. I don't remember how much money you paid. I don't remember who you are. I'm just feeling passionate about English literature. I want to learn more and more and teach you so that you will all benefit. You know, like that, if you also study, you will be greatly benefited. Did you understand? Okay, now let me come to John Dryden. I know that you all know that he was a poet, a satirist. He was a dramatist. Remember, in British literature, we said all this. Dryden was a poet. He started writing poetry. What are the poems that he wrote? I'm not telling you. You should answer in the chat box. Tell me, what are the poems that Dryden wrote? Tell me quickly. No time to waste. What are the poems that Dryden wrote? Chat box. Fill the chat box. No, dear Sharanya. Donne cannot be born in the same year. Donne was born in 1572, Sharanya. When did Donne die? That is what you're mixing up. Yes. Of dramatic poesy is not a poem. Okay, after having written the poems written by Dryden, which are they? Poems written by Dryden, not Rape of the Lock, that is wrong. Medell, Macflecknoe, Absalom and Achitophel, All for Love is a play. Hero and Leander. Dunciad is written by Pope. I will tell you, Dryden's first poem is Heroic Stanzas on the Death of Oliver Cromwell. Then next poem is Astrea Redux. Then next poem is Annus Mirabilis. Then next poem is Absalom and Achitophel. Then Medal, Macflecno, Religio Laici, The Hind and the Panther. He also wrote Alexander's Feast, Song for Saint Cecilia's Day. Did you understand? What are Dryden's plays? Now tell me, what are Dryden's plays? First play is The Wild Gallant, then The Indian Emperor, then The Rival Ladies. I'm not saying chronologically. Aurangzeb. Our Aurangzeb is Indian, and his last major play is All for Love. Before that, other plays also, so many plays he wrote. Marriage a la Mode, etc. And which is the play that came against Dryden's heroic play? The genre that Dryden wrote is called heroic play. Heroic play. And against heroic play, what is the play that came attacking Dryden? It is The Rehearsal. The Rehearsal. Dryden also wrote prose works. He wrote essay on satire, essay on heroic play, essay of dramatic poesy, preface to the Fables. So many prose works also Dryden wrote. Dryden can be called the founder of modern prose style. And many prefaces and epilogues he wrote. Many prefaces and epilogues. And as I told you, Dr. Johnson called him father of English criticism. Dryden was the first self-conscious critic. That means the first critic who knew that he is doing criticism. Before Dryden, Sidney and others were just justifying their works. They were just justifying their literature. Dryden was the first person who was a self-conscious critic. He knew that he is giving us the principles of criticism. And when he talked and wrote, he covered all kinds of literary genres and all kinds of literary problems. Dryden was a descriptive critic. He did not prescribe rules. You should write like this, like that. Dryden never wrote. He just looked at people's writing and prescribed rules. He was a descriptive critic. And Dryden, many of you are saying wrong things. I don't have time to correct you. He was not a metaphysical poet. You see, YouTube Live, you should either listen very carefully or follow some course. And, you know, just by YouTube Live, you're getting a lot of wrong ideas also. I'm a little worried about it. Many of you are saying wrong things also. Please pay attention, okay? Dryden wrote the criticism of epicene. I'll come to that. Dryden was a prescriptive critic, and I was saying it was in Dryden's Of Dramatic Poesy that he gave the first literary analysis of a work of art, of a work of literature. That was Johnson's Epicene, or The Silent Woman. Dryden also affirmed the native element in literature. Englishness he supported. He did not attack Chaucer or Shakespeare, even though they are anti-classical. Dryden understood that every historical period has had its own different conventions. Dryden was the first historical critic and the first comparative critic. He compared English and French plays. He compared ancients and moderns, where in Of Dramatic Poesy. Did you understand? And he was a very liberal neoclassical critic. He was very liberal in his attitudes. Clear? Now let me talk about Of Dramatic Poesy. Of Dramatic Poesy is a discussion that is happening between four aristocrats. The first to speak, they're all sitting together on a barge, very big ship, big boat, and they are discussing about contemporary problems. The first to speak is Critus. Critus represents Robert Howard, and Critus expounds or supports the classical masters. He supports the ancients. And when Critus speaks, he supports the ancients, and he says that the ancients are superior than any previous age. Before neoclassicism, before Dryden, there was Elizabethans, there was the metaphysical school. Dryden says the ancient masters were superior to all of them. And Critus does not like rhyme or heroic couplet. He attacks rhyme violently. Critus is replied to by Eugenius. Eugenius replies to Critus. Tell me, whom did Eugenius support? Whom did Eugenius support? Tell me now. I'm waiting. Yes, Sunil Kumar, I will answer your question soon. Eugenius supported the moderns. Critus supported the ancients. Eugenius supported the moderns. Did you understand? And he said that, Eugenius said that moderns have experience as well as rules of the ancients. Moderns have rules of the ancients as well as experience. That is why. He said ancient plays are no good. Modern plays are very rich. There are many new features in modern plays. He liked the moderns better. The next to speak is Lycidius. Lycidius represents Charles Sedley. Did you understand? And Lycidius supports French plays, French classicism. Critus supports ancient classicism. Lycidius supports French classicism. During the time of Dryden, the classical masters of France were, who are the classical masters of France? Answer in your chat box. I'm waiting. The classical masters of France are, tell me, they are Moliere, Corneille, Racine. These are the classical masters, and these are supported by Lycidius. He said, Lycidius compared English plays with French plays and said English plays have so much spectacle, too many characters, it is no good. French plays are superior. Lycidius also gives a very famously a definition of what is a play. Lycidius very famously says that a play is a just and lively image of human nature. A just and lively image of human nature. Lycidius defined a drama or play like that. Did you understand? And then the next to speak is Neander. Neander represents Dryden, and Neander represents contemporary English plays against the ancients and against the French. Neander supports contemporary English plays. And he says French plots lack variety. English plays are good because there is tragic comedy in it. Tragicomedy and violation of unities are there in English plays. This brings variety. It is actually Neander who analyzes epicene or the silent woman. Neander talks about Ben Jonson and Shakespeare and famously says Shakespeare was the Homer or father of our dramatic poets, while Jonson is the Virgil pattern of dramatic writing. Did you understand? And he also said, I love Ben Jonson, but I love Shakespeare. I love Ben Jonson, but I love Shakespeare. The next important critical work is Preface to the Fables, published in the year Dryden died, that is in 1700. And Dryden had translated at this time Ovid, Homer, Boccaccio, Chaucer. Will you remember? Ovid, Homer, Boccaccio, Chaucer. If you study with a tune like that, you might remember better. And Dryden first talks about, in Preface to the Fables, he first talks about his translations, how he began translating, how his translations developed. Like that he talks about. And then he talks more about, and then he talks more about these authors, starts comparing these authors. He starts talking about various literatures of Greece, Rome, Italy. Italy means Latin literature, England. He starts comparing all these literatures. He compares Ovid with Boccaccio. He compares Homer with Virgil. Did you understand? Ovid and Boccaccio, Homer and Virgil, and then he appreciates Chaucer. He says Chaucer is a perpetual fountain of good sense. He appreciates Chaucer's characterization. And you know what he said about it? Everybody knows what Dryden said about Chaucer's characterization. Answer in the chat box. Answer in the chat box. What did Dryden say about Chaucer's characterization? That famous line. Tell me, what is it? I am waiting. What did he say about Chaucer's characterization? Here is God's plenty. Dryden said about Chaucer, here is God's plenty, like it is in my YouTube videos. My YouTube audience, my YouTube friends, my YouTube students also, here is God's plenty, I can say. people from across the country, from all categories, he also said, Chaucer is a rough diamond that should be polished ere he shines. Chaucer is a rough diamond that should be polished ere he shines. That also he said. So these are the major works by John Dryden. And I hope you liked my discussion of John Dryden. Did you like my discussion of John Dryden? Next, we have to talk about the second neoclassical writer, who is Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson is the second neoclassical writer. He was born after Words in the second period of Augustan age. In Johnson's age, reason and emotion are coexisting. Did you understand? Reason and emotion are coexisting. Johnson was a very strict classical critic, but he was also liberal, especially in Preface to Shakespeare. He is very liberal. Johnson has written Preface to the Dictionary. Remember 1755, he wrote dictionary, published a dictionary. He wrote Preface to the Dictionary. He wrote Preface to Shakespeare. He wrote Lives of the Poets. Did you understand? And Lives of the Poets, that was published in 1781, was a pioneering work of biographical criticism. Probably you know that in Lives of the Poets, there are biographies of 52 poets. 52 poets are there. And these biographies were originally critical prefaces that he wrote. Did you understand? Life of Cowley, very famous. Life of Milton, very famous. Life of Pope, very famous. And in these lives, there are some problems. He has some problems also. What are they? He criticized excellent poems like Lycidas. And he did not understand music or imagination. He did not understand metaphysical poets. He did not understand that, some poets are great. He criticized too harshly. That is the problem. Johnson, the definition that Johnson gave for poetry is very important. What is the definition that Johnson gave for poetry? Poetry is the art. When you study, you should study visually like this, okay? So that you will remember. Poetry is the art of uniting pleasure with truth. Did you understand? Pleasure with truth united. Poetry is the art of uniting pleasure with truth. How? By calling imagination to the help of reason. By calling imagination to the help of reason. Will you remember? Poetry is the art of uniting pleasure with truth by calling imagination to the help of reason. Will you remember that definition? And Johnson also, like Dryden, you know what? He defended rhyme. Dryden also defended rhyme. I told you that, na? Johnson also defended rhyme. What do you mean by rhyme? Rhyme means, answer in the chat box. What is rhyme? Answer in the chat box. What did Dr. Johnson mean by rhyme? Rhyme means heroic couplet. Rhyme means heroic couplet. Okay. And then his most famous critical essay is what? Preface to Shakespeare. 1765. Preface to Shakespeare is 1765. Will you remember? In Preface to Shakespeare, he praises Shakespeare for a just representation of human nature. He praises Shakespeare for a just representation of human nature. Why does he say Preface to Shakespeare? Because this is the preface to his edition of Shakespeare's complete works. He edited Shakespeare's complete works. He praised Shakespeare for a just representation of human nature. He said that Shakespeare's characters are faithful representations of humanity. That is the meaning of just representation of human nature. Shakespeare's characters are a just representation or faithful representation of humanity. In Shakespeare, there are universal characters who are also individual. Universality is there. Individual is also there. Did you understand? And Shakespeare's characters are true to type. Very famous. Johnson said, Shakespeare's works are a storehouse of practical axioms and domestic wisdom. Shakespeare's works are a storehouse of practical axioms and domestic wisdom. Very famously, he said, Shakespeare has no heroes. His plays are peopled by men and women. Shakespeare has no heroes. His plays are peopled by men and women. Dr. Johnson also defended Shakespeare's use of tragicomedy and violation of unities. Like whom? Like Dryden also did. Dryden also defended Shakespeare's use of tragicomedy and violation of unities. Remember that? And Dr. Johnson actually criticized Shakespeare also. He did not just praise Shakespeare, he criticized Shakespeare for his loose plots. His plots are loose. Dr. Johnson said Shakespeare sacrifices virtue to convenience. Somebody asked me encyclopedia. This is encyclopedia, 3rd volume. Priyanka, this is encyclopedia. Shakespeare sacrifices virtue to convenience. And he also criticized Shakespeare for using too many puns and quibbles. He said that is Shakespeare's fatal Cleopatra. Fatal Cleopatra. What is the 4th reason he criticized Shakespeare for? That is for Shakespeare's anachronisms. Shakespeare used too many anachronisms. Did you understand? So all these are the major criticisms that he leveled against Shakespeare. So we talked about Dr. Dryden and Dr. Johnson. Today I forgot to talk about Sydney actually. Sydney came before Dryden and Dr. Johnson, and I plunged into Dryden right away without talking about Sydney. I will quickly tell about Sydney, okay? Sydney's defense of poetry or defense of poesy or apology for poetry was written in reply to the Puritan Stephen Gosson, who wrote School of Abuse. Apology for poetry is divided into 5 broad areas. First, he talks about antiquity and universality of poetry. Poetry is antique and universal. And then he talks about kinds of poetry. There are 3 kinds of poetry: religious poetry, philosophical poetry, and imaginative poetry, or the right or true kind of poetry. Oh, I did not explain anachronism. Anachronism means showing one period and showing the features of another period in that period. Did you understand? He's talking about Julius Caesar, who lived in the BCs. Shakespeare is talking about Julius Caesar. And then he talks about clocks there. Clock is striking. And clocks were only invented in the 13th century. So mixing up time periods is called anachronism. To depict a 19th century person using a mobile phone would be anachronism. Did you understand? Because in the 19th century, there is no mobile phone like that. So coming back to Sydney, Sydney first talked about the antiquity and universality of poetry. Then he talked about the different kinds of poetry: religious, philosophical, and the right or true kind of poetry. The right or true kind of poetry is the real kinds. It can be further subdivided into many kinds: heroic poetry, epic poetry, tragic poetry, satiric poetry, comic poetry, iambic poetry, elegiac poetry. All are covered, I think. And he also talks about the uses of all these genres. What are the different uses of all these genres also he talks about. And then he talks about the current objections against poetry, replies to them. Yesterday I told you Sydney uses Aristotelian ideas mostly. He talks about Aristotelian ideas. And then he talks about the contemporary state of poetry and drama. And he talks finally about rhyme, diction, etc. Okay, very famous is that Sydney defined poetry as a speaking picture with its end to teach and delight. Sydney said that poetry is a speaking picture with its end, means objective, to teach and delight. Did you understand? In Sydney, the ideas of Plato and Aristotle are both intermingling. Both ideas are there in Sydney. Like Aristotle, he compared poetry to philosophy and history. Remember, Aristotle also did that. And he says that you don't need rhyme and meter in poetry. Meter and rhyme are not essential, but if you have them, they add to the effect of poetry. They are good if they are there, but it is not essential. Like that, poetry does not need meter and rhyme essentially, but if you have it, it is okay. That is how. And at the end, Sydney replies to the Puritans and talks about the poor state of poetry in England at that time. That is how he talks about poetry and ends with it. Did you understand? Now I will talk about romantic poetry, which is the poetry, the romantic criticism rather, the criticism of William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth replied to the neoclassical ideas. William Wordsworth rejected the new. When I talk about classical ideas and neoclassical ideas, I have to talk about Wordsworth and lyrical ballads also, right? He replied to the neoclassical ideas of poetic diction, human nature, etc., with his preface to the lyrical ballads. Lyrical ballads were experimental poems where he tried to understand whether the ordinary language of the common people would suit poetic pleasure, would give poetic pleasure. Is it necessary to write in poetic diction? Is it necessary to write about upper classes all the time? Can you write about ordinary people and nature and still give pleasure? That is the meaning of, that is the aim of lyrical ballads, which was published in which year? Tell me in the chat box. Published in which year? Tell me in the chat box. 1798, of course, everybody knows it was 1798. And the preface to lyrical ballads is in the nature of a defense. It is defending the theory that poetry must be written in the real language of men. Did you understand? The spoken language, the real language of men. And Wordsworth is defining poetry, and he's praising ordinary language in poetry. He says poetry is the breadth and finer spirit of all knowledge. Poetry is the breadth and finer spirit of all knowledge. It is the impassioned expression which is in the countenance of all science. Very famous definition. Poetry is the breadth and finer spirit of all knowledge. It is the impassioned expression which is in the countenance of all science. Did you understand? And he first says that poetry should have a simple subject matter. First and foremost, he talks about subject matter. Poetry should be about humble, rustic life. Then he says, to write simple subject matter, you need simple language. So simple subject matter should be written in simple language. Only simple language will suit simple theme. And then he says that simple language will be highly emotional and passionate, because rustic people are very emotional people. When they feel an emotion, they will quickly say they're simple people. They live in communion with nature. So simple language of the rustic people is natural and emotional. Did you understand? You should avoid artificial diction. You should avoid artificial use of figures of speech, etc. and use emotional language, spontaneous emotion. Remember, poetry is the result, is spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings which recollect from emotions recollected in tranquility. Which result from emotions recollected in tranquility. Poetry is written in 4 phases, roughly 4 phases. Did you understand? First, you will travel in the countryside and see a host of golden daffodils, like Wordsworth saw. You see a host of golden daffodils. Then there is a lot of spontaneous feelings that are created in your mind. But you can't take your pen and paper and start writing poetry then and there, can you? So you don't write anything. Your feelings are there. But then you go home. In your couch, you lie in vacant or in pensive mood. In tranquility, you lie in your couch. Did you understand? At that time, you recollect whatever you saw earlier in the countryside. When emotions are recollected in tranquility, it will lead again, once more, to a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings happen. And this second time when it happens, that is called recrudescence or renewal of original emotion. Did you understand? First, there is observation. Then there is recollection. Then there is recrudescence. That means overflow once again. Original feelings are coming. And then you contemplate on it and imaginatively exploit it. You contemplate on these, you reflect or contemplate on these emotions that are revived in the phase of recrudescence. And then you write poetry. That is the 4-stage poetic process. Did you understand? Another essay that Wordsworth wrote is essay supplementary to the preface. Wordsworth wrote essay supplementary to the preface, where he talks about criticism. He says that contemporary critics are very rare. Good critics are very rare. A good critic should be a philosopher as well as a poet. He should not be prejudiced. He should be of mature age, and he should have continuous reading of poetry. He should have good taste. Ideas given by Wordsworth were actually criticized by both Coleridge and T.S. Eliot. Both Coleridge and T.S. Eliot criticized Wordsworth's ideas regarding poetry, especially since Wordsworth and Coleridge had, fought because Coleridge was living a wayward life, eating opium, etc. Wordsworth did not like that. They had fought in between. Did you understand? That is why Coleridge also criticized him in Biographia Literaria. Biographia Literaria came in 1817. And it shows the influence of Wordsworth. It shows the influence of David Hartley. It also shows the influence of the German Romantics. Did you understand? Let me drink some water before Coleridge. By the way, did you like the video, everybody? Okay. Coleridge was first influenced by David Hartley. Who is David Hartley? David Hartley was the associationist psychologist. David Hartley is the associationist psychologist. And David Hartley believed that the human mind is like a bowl or a receptacle. The human mind is like a bowl or receptacle where numberless feelings are put. Did you understand? Numberless feelings are put. There is nothing that happens. It's like a salad bowl. These feelings are coming out in poetry just like that. There is nothing else that happens to it. These feelings are coming out in poetry just like that. But Coleridge's idea changed completely after he traveled in Germany. After the lyrical ballads was published, Coleridge, Wordsworth, and Dorothy traveled in Germany. You know that, right? At this time, Coleridge completely changed. He learned from Immanuel Kant the idea of the idea of assemblastic imagination. Kant, the transcendental idealist, taught him the value of assemblastic imagination. That means imagination is a shaping power. Using Hartley's associationism, he thought that imagination is like a salad bowl. But now, using German Romanticism, he believes that imagination is like a pressure cooker. Coleridge did not say that. I am saying that, okay? Imagination is like a pressure cooker where so many ingredients are put and it will all cook and become sambar. The ingredients do not remain as it is. They become new. Assemblastic imagination means secondary imagination. Secondary imagination takes external impressions, dissolves, diffuses, dissipates in order to recreate. That is called secondary imagination. Secondary imagination dissolves, diffuses, and dissipates in order to recreate. This he learned from German Romantics. Famous German Romantics like Schlegel, Schleiermacher, Schelling. Did you understand? Schlegel, Schleiermacher, Schelling. That is right. Krishna said it. The ingredients are primary imagination. Primary imagination is worked in the pressure cooker and it becomes sambar using secondary imagination. Did you understand? Yeah, porridge or sambar. Secondary imagination creates wonderful curry. With primary imagination, lady's finger, bhindi, pyaj, dal, spices, all will remain as it is. What is this? So many vegetables you have given me. If there is only primary imagination, it is like only vegetables. Secondary imagination cooks it into sambar. Will you remember? And Coleridge at this time learned German language. He even translated Schiller's Wallenstein. One trilogy is there, Wallenstein. He learned it. And apart from Biographia Literaria, Coleridge has also written lectures on Shakespeare and other poets. These lectures actually was published posthumously only. These lectures were published posthumously only. Did you understand? And he distinguished primary and secondary imagination from fancy. Fancy is the mere drapery. Fancy is the only dress, but imagination is the soul. When some people teach, you get only the dress. But when some people teach, you get the soul. You understand? Some teachers have secondary imagination. They will teach in a very brilliant manner so that I want to be like that. I'm trying to be like that. I don't know if I have it, but I'm trying to be like a great teacher. I'm trying to be like great teachers who will be able to bring soul into what they teach. Did you understand? I'm trying to be like that. We should all try to be like that. We should not just give fancy, just the dress. Studying only points. Studying only points. Some people are like that. They study only points without the soul, without the life. That is like fancy. But studying with life, studying organically, giving something life when you teach it, that is like secondary imagination. I'm constantly trying to avoid being fancy. I'm constantly thinking I should not just give fancy, I should give soul, I should give secondary imagination. That is what I'm trying to do. That is what Wordsworth also tried to do. Coleridge also tried to do. Did you understand? And Coleridge criticized Wordsworth for saying real language of men. Coleridge said there is no real language of men. Every person speaks differently. What is important is not education. What is important is not language, but education. Education means what is important is knowing exactly what is worthwhile in something. Just because you live in the countryside, it is not necessary that you have that kind of vision. Even people living in skyscrapers can also write good poetry. It is not necessary to be rustic. This is what Coleridge said. One criticism that Coleridge said. And Coleridge said even Wordsworth has not written rustic language all the time. Sometimes he has written, very high language also. And associated with Coleridge is willing suspension of disbelief. For example, you are watching a horror movie. I will tell you the example. You are watching a horror movie. Have I told you how I watch horror movies? I sit alone in a room. I want to feel afraid. So I sit alone in a room, switch off the lights and start watching a horror movie in my phone. And then I become so scared. And then I tell myself, this is only a movie. They are only actors. These actors have acted later in other movies. This is only a movie. This is not a ghost. This is only acting. This is only lighting. Like this, I keep telling myself. Otherwise, I am so scared. What is happening there? I am not willingly suspending my disbelief. I am not willingly suspending my disbelief. Whereas willing suspension of disbelief means when you watch a movie or when you watch a play, you should really believe that this is happening. You should suspend your disbelief. You should not feel disbelief. Did you understand? You should not feel disbelief. I am such a failure in watching horror movies. If you watch horror movie with me, you will be in trouble because I will not let you suspend your disbelief. I will keep telling you, okay, don't feel afraid. This is only movie. These actors are not only actors. This is not really happening like that. I will keep telling. Coleridge would have beaten me. What are you doing? Willingly suspend your disbelief like that. He would have beaten me. Because willingly suspending your disbelief, when you watch a painting, there is a thunderous waterfall in the painting. You don't watch the painting and think this is only a painting. There is no waterfall there. You read Gulliver's Travels. You think there are no Lilliputians. There are no Brobdingnagians. This is only fantasy. This is not true. If you think like that, there will be no poetic faith. Did you understand? You have to willingly suspend your disbelief. That is what constitutes poetic faith. Did you understand? And I already told you Coleridge was the first Shakespearean critic. He wrote lectures on Shakespeare and other poets. That is the best example of practical criticism. Coleridge wrote practical criticism. Did you understand? Our Shelley also wrote about imagination in Defense of Poetry. Okay. Defense of Poetry written by Shelley also talks about imagination. Okay. And Shelley said, poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. There is one more very important critic, even though we know him as a poet, that is John Keats. Romantic criticism will be complete only with John Keats. John Keats talked about negative capability and egotistical sublime. John Keats wrote in his letters to his brother. John Keats wrote in his letters to his brother that a poet should have the negative capability. A capability is usually positive, right? You are able to do something. But a poet should have the negative capability to be in uncertainties, mysteries, and doubts without an irritable reaching after fact and reason. I'm quoting from John Keats. You know what that means? A poet should have the negative capability to be in uncertainties. A poet is uncertain. A poet doesn't know how to solve this problem that he has written about in his book. A poet doesn't know what is certain and not. A poet is ambiguous. A poet is in double minds. Did you understand? That is almost like a modernist element, isn't it? A poet is completely confused. He is uncertain. He doesn't know what to make of whatever he has written. He is in uncertainty. He is in mystery. He doesn't know how to solve this problem in his own poem. He is in doubt. Did you understand? Like that, when he writes, like Shakespeare had that. Shakespeare did not solve each and every problem in his work. For example, he put Malvolio in 12th Night. And he made all the characters teach Malvolio a lesson. And then he did not know how to end the problem. He left it like that. Malvolio is raving in the room and he is not able to take revenge. He left it like that. Caliban is taught a lesson by Prospero. And Caliban actually helped Prospero. But how that problem that he created, he left it like that. Hamlet is procrastinating. Even Shakespeare doesn't know why Hamlet is procrastinating. He left it like that without explaining. That is a wonderful feature of a great writer. A great writer does not put himself into the work. A great writer does not try to solve everything. I am Shakespeare. I will solve this problem. I will speak for my characters. It should not be like that. Did you understand? A mother and father should not put themselves into the mouth of their children. They should let the children be. A great teacher should let the students be. A great writer should let his characters be. Wherever there is polyphony, wherever there is multiple perspectives, did you understand? There will be negative capability. Whereas in writers like William Wordsworth or Leo Tolstoy, they will try to solve everything in their works. They will put their voice into their characters, because they are writers with egotistical sublime. Whereas great writers like Shakespeare or Dostoevsky will have negative capability. Did you understand? Negative capability goes with polyphony. Egotistical sublime is monologic. I'm using Bakhtin's terms to explain. Negative capability is somewhat related to modernism also in that sense. Did you understand? Did you like the video? Because we are going to end very soon. Yeah, death of the author also. That is very good, Depoti. Death of the author. That author should die. The author should not put his words into the mouth of the characters. Like Eliot said, in tradition and the individual talent, it should be an escape from personality. Writing should be an escape from personality. Did you understand? It should not be an expression of personality. It is like death of the author. Did you understand? There are 285 people here. Will I see 285 likes? I don't know. So many people who do not teach so many points. They have 42 likes, 42 lakh likes, views, 50 lakh likes and views. I have 100 likes. Because you're not liking me, I know. Will you like and share my video? Because I am feeling so jealous. I want to have likes too. Will you please like? If you don't like also, it's okay. I'm just playing with you. No problem. If you don't like also, no problem. It has nothing to do. What I really value is your support and appreciation. I know that each and every one of you who watched this video is appreciating me, loving me. They are encouraging me to do more. Like I am helping you, you are also helping me. Like I am encouraging you, you are also encouraging me. It is mutual. It is not like you are not encouraging me. You are encouraging me more than I am encouraging you. You are making me what I am. I'm so deeply indebted to you. It doesn't matter whether you like or share. If you like, wonderful. If you don't like also, no problem. If you join my course, wonderful. If you don't join my course also, no problem. Because there is something more than 500 rupees that you will pay. That is that invaluable help and appreciation that you give me. That is tremendous. I'm so thankful. I'm so glad. I'm so deeply indebted to you. Thank you very, very much. Good night. God bless all of you. I'm happy. I will go on teaching you like this. If you want anything, WhatsApp me. Some of you are also asking me to explain things and all that. I'm trying to help them also. I will help you in every way I can. So if you have any problem related to work and studies, please WhatsApp me. Okay, I will try. If I don't reply immediately, it is because I somehow missed it out. Please once again send me a message and I will reply. It is not deliberate. Don't take it as I'm ignoring you. Not like that. Okay, it is just because so many messages come and I missed it out. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good night. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. Even God is helping us. You know that? Because every day at 7 time, there was no power. It was so difficult. I was feeling so ill also. I was feeling very low, energetic, and no light. It was such a struggle. And then I lay down and I took one medicine and I had a little bit of food. And like God helped me, suddenly I got energy. Every day people will think I was pretending in their class. Actually, I was not. Suddenly, I don't know from where I got this energy. So I will do very good in every day at 7 also tomorrow. I thought God is helping me because God wants me to do this in YouTube. That is why, it happened. Suddenly power came and I'm feeling better also. So thank you for all your prayers. Thank you for all your support. Love you. Bye-bye. I'm ending the program now because it is 10 o'clock and you have your